Mortarion, the pale sun, the reaper of Barbarus, a child who breathed poison, who grew up beneath skies choked with death. And yet, somehow, he became the master of life and death itself. This is not just a story of war. This is the story of a boy who hated tyrants, and how he became the greatest tyrant of all. This is the dark ascension of Mortarion, the Plague Lord. When the Primarchs were scattered, Mortarion's cradle did not fall to a world of sun and soil. He fell to Barbarus, a planet wrapped in mist so thick and toxic that even a single breath could kill. The humans who lived there cowered in valleys, gasping for life, enslaved by cruel warlords who ruled from mountaintops above the toxic clouds. These warlords were not men. They were monsters, towering, armored, and immune to the poison. And it was among these monsters that Mortarion was raised. As a child, he learned to fight under skies that killed mortals. He grew tall and pale, with lungs strong enough to endure the mist. But even as he grew, one thought consumed him. Why should anyone live in chains, beneath tyrants who thrived on suffering? When Mortarion came of age, he broke free from the warlord who raised him. He descended into the valleys, where humans struggled for survival. And when they saw him, this giant who could breathe the air that killed them, they thought he was a god. But Mortarion didn't want worship. He wanted vengeance. He taught them to fight. He forged crude weapons and led them into battle. For the first time, the enslaved of Barbarus struck back against their oppressors. And everywhere Mortarion marched, freedom followed. But there was always one mountain higher than the rest, one warlord greater than all others. And Mortarion swore he would climb that mountain and destroy the master of them all. Before he could face his greatest foe, the skies split. The Emperor of mankind had come. He had found his lost son. But Mortarion was not grateful. He saw the Emperor as just another tyrant, descending from the heavens with armies at his back. The Emperor offered Mortarion command of the Death Guard, a legion made in his image. But Mortarion refused to bow. He made a pact. If he could slay the highest warlord of Barbarus, the Emperor would leave. But if he failed, he would serve. So Mortarion climbed the mountain. He carried his scythe, the silence of his people behind him. But when he reached the warlord's fortress, the poison grew thicker than even he could endure. His lungs burned, his strength faltered, and as death closed in, it was the Emperor who struck the final blow. The warlord fell, but not to Mortarion's hand, and from that day, Mortarion's soul was stained with bitterness. He took command of the Death Guard, and they became his image. Soldiers who marched through fire, through poison, through hell itself. Unstoppable, unyielding, unafraid. They did not seek glory, only endurance. To Mortarion, life was suffering, and his sons would be the ones who survived it. But inside him, a wound still festered. He had sworn to destroy tyrants, and yet he served one. The Emperor, his father, had robbed him of his greatest victory. And in that resentment, seeds were sown. When Horus rebelled, Mortarion listened. At first, he resisted the call of the warp. He despised demons, hated sorcery, loathed the very thought of corruption. But on the fields of the heresy, choice was stripped away. On the poisoned world of Istvan, his legion was betrayed. On the endless marches, his sons died in droves. And when plague swept through their ranks, there was no cure, no hope, no salvation, except a whisper, a promise, a voice from the warp, cold and patient. You hate sorcery. But what is this, if not survival? Let me save them. Let me save you. Bow to me, and they will never die again." Mortarion had resisted gods his entire life, but as he watched his sons rot in their armor, choking on their own blood, he broke. He gave himself to Nurgle, and in that moment, the Death Guard changed forever. Their wounds closed, only to fester eternally, their lungs filled with disease. But they no longer needed air. Their armor rusted, but could never break. They had become immortal and damned. Mortarion rose, no longer pale, no longer gasping, but bloated, swollen, and filled with the filth of a god. He had ascended, not as a liberator, not as a savior, but as the Plague Lord, Daemon Primarch of Nurgle. And in the Immaterium, where the warp roils with madness, Mortarion built his throne. The man who swore he would destroy tyrants became the greatest tyrant of decay, a god of rot, ruling a kingdom of ruin. This is the tragedy of Mortarion, a child who hated poison, who became poison itself, a son who swore to break chains, who forged chains of disease and despair. And yet, in his corruption, lies a terrible truth. Sometimes, it is not our enemies who destroy us. It is the very things we swore to fight